The gathering of the Meyis. Every year on this path, Olofin would gather the 16 Meyis every year. As the new year approached, they would set out for Olofin's house. On their way, they passed by the house of Obará Meyí and said to him, "Come with us." But he replied, "Go ahead, I will join you later because I am feeding Egan." Since they were going to arrive first, Obara asked them for a favor. He handed them some items wrapped up and requested that they deliver them to Olofin. On the way, the others mocked him, saying, "Look how deceitful he is. Look at what he's sending to Olofin." And they all laughed. Once at Olofin's house, the 15 Awós each presented him with elegant gifts. Olofin examined all the offerings, and when he reached the package sent by Obara, all the Awós burst into laughter. Olofin then asked, "Why hasn't Obara come?" They replied, "He said he was feeding a goon, so he couldn't come." The yearly reading began, and everyone spoke. When they finished, Olofin gave each of the Awós a pumpkin, èlègbẹ. They all looked at each other in confusion, because every year, Olofin would usually give them money and jewels so they could live well throughout the year. They were also hungry, as Olofin had not given them anything to eat. They thought Obara had been lying and said, "Let's go inside so he stops deceiving us. If he doesn't even have food for himself, how could he have food for us?" But to their astonishment, they found a table beautifully set with abundant food. They all ate, and as they were leaving, they asked Obara, "Are you going to keep these pumpkins here? What do we even need them for?" Before all of this, Obara had consulted Ifa, and Orunmila had told him not to attend the gathering, to feed Egun, and that whoever visited his house, he should offer them all he had, even if he was left with nothing. Orunmila also told him to perform a bow with 15 pumpkins, èlègbẹ, and never to eat pumpkin, as he would soon find wealth and prosperity. Furthermore, he was to place one of the pumpkins as an offering to Oshun. After all the Awós had left, Obara's wife began to argue with him. "How could you give away the little we had, and now we are left with nothing?" Obara replied, "Orunmila commanded me to do so." But the argument kept escalating until suddenly, Oshun possessed the wife and spoke to Obara. "When you have nothing left to eat, open the pumpkins, and you will find something that will surprise you." Then Oshun disappeared, leaving Obara deep in thought. He went out to gather firewood, and upon returning, he looked at the corner where the Awós had abandoned the pumpkins. He thought to himself, "Well, Oshun told me to open them." To his shock and amazement, inside the pumpkins were great riches and precious jewels. He quickly called his wife and showed her what he had found. As he kept opening each one, he discovered more and more wealth. When he finished opening the last pumpkin, they took the seeds and guts and spread them all around their land, blessing their home with prosperity. That year, Obara had an abundant harvest and sold it at a great price. This is how he became wealthy through the trade of pumpkins, èlègbẹ. As the date for the next gathering before Olofin approached, all the Awós were on their way and once again passed by Obara's house. To their astonishment, they saw that he had prospered greatly and now owned a thriving business. Meanwhile, the Awós were lamenting how difficult their year had been. They had faced hardships, hunger, and misery. Seeing Obara's success, they said to one another, "How is it possible? Last year, we brought Olofin such fine gifts, and look at how we were repaid, with a year of suffering and scarcity. And yet Obara, who didn't even attend, look at how he has flourished." Obara welcomed them and said, "Go ahead, I will be there shortly." So they continued on their way. Once at Olofin's house, to everyone's surprise, Obara arrived, riding on a horse.